I just want to speak briefly in relation to these matters, and I've listened very, very carefully to the eloquent contributions that have been previously made by the Noble Lord, Lord Judge and others on these issues about international law, although I'm struck that over the years there have been examples of governments backing away from commitments in international treaties. It happened under a Labour government, it happened during the coalition government, so it was nothing particularly new. What was particularly new, I think, was the stark way in which the government minister at the dispatch box outlined it. And what I only wish government ministers under the Lib Dem Conservative coalition and the Labour governments in the past had been equally free and open and admitted it and done it honestly. The point is, what was behind the government's efforts in the United Kingdom Internal Market Bill? It was to deal with the state aid point, as we've heard, but also to guarantee unfettered access for Northern Ireland goods to the rest of the United Kingdom. Hardly something in itself terribly contentious, since it's the benefit of everybody in Northern Ireland that business should flow free and unfettered, to the economic benefit of business, all communities, to employment, the creation of jobs, all of which adds to the stability, prosperity of Northern Ireland going forward. It was something that was agreed by the EU itself in the joint report of December 2017. It was something that was agreed by the parties in Northern Ireland when they signed up to the New Decade New Approach document. All the parties, nobody reneged from it. It was in the Conservative Party manifesto, as the Noble Lord True has mentioned. So there shouldn't be anything contentious about that principle. It was well outlined, it was very clear, it was supported indeed in some amendments that were put down in the other place by parties other than Unionist parties as well. Now, the fact of the matter is that under the Section 38 of the European Union Withdrawal Agreement Act 2020, which was passed by over 120 votes in the other place, it does allow for notwithstanding arrangements. And in Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol itself, it makes it quite clear that where the protocol would do serious economic, societal or environmental damage to Northern Ireland, the government has the right to act unilaterally. I can think of nothing more designed to cause serious economic damage than to put extra multiple costs and restrictions and administrative burdens on businesses in Northern Ireland, the vast bulk of which do their trade with the rest of the United Kingdom, and thereby causing economic damage, job losses and the rest of it. So I would just appeal to noble lords as they consider these matters to think of the practical consequences of some of the arguments that are being put forward here. The effect on people's businesses, small businesses. The most Northern Ireland businesses are small and medium-sized. Think of the people working there. Think of the people who will lose their jobs if unfettered access wasn't guaranteed, or some of the other restrictions from Great Britain to Northern Ireland were not agreed. The protocol, as noble lords know, and as the government knows all too well, was opposed by us on these benches and opposed by many in Northern Ireland because of the reasons, many of which have been set out very passionately by the noble Baroness Hoey, and quite rightly, the reasons she sets out. Because it does create differences within the internal market of the United Kingdom, with economic and constitutional implications, which, while people have pointed to the Belfast Agreement, and although I hear very little reference amongst noble lords and even commentators about the St Andrews Agreement, the Stormont House Agreement and all of those, I would urge people to refresh their memories about all those agreements, which, taken in the round, are about a consensus in Northern Ireland of Unionists and Nationalists. So if borders, restrictions or presence or tariffs north-south on the island of Ireland are utterly unacceptable because it might breach the Belfast Agreement. Likewise, it is unacceptable for many people in Northern Ireland that such restrictions, tariffs, etc., should be imposed between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. That's a simple principle, which I think should not be contentious. And yet, when we hear people saying that Part 5 of this bill drives a coach and horses through not just international law but the Belfast Agreement, they have no regard, it seems, to the very serious concerns that many people have voiced, indeed many who were instrumental in drawing up the Belfast Agreement, that this does do serious damage to the agreement in Northern Ireland, destabilises the executive. It is important, and I'm a believer in devolution. I want to see it succeed, but it will not succeed if we have a one-sided approach to the Belfast Agreement. It's got to be a rounded approach. And therefore, I think that the government now needs to demonstrate. It is said it's withdrawing certain clauses in this bill, standing by others. I welcome those clauses that it's putting in and standing by. They're important statements of principle. But we will now have to wait and see how the statement made in the other place today is actually implemented. The noble Lord, Lord Howard, talked about matters being resolved. Some have been, perhaps, but others have been deliberately put on hold. So things aren't resolved. They're not resolved. And therefore it will be important to see how this works out in practice. And I would say to the government that they will need to keep under review as we proceed how measures here, taken under the provisions which I outlined at the start of my speech, can help to preserve stable government, economic prosperity and the upholding of the agreements that have been made in Northern Ireland for both Unionists and Nationalists and those of neither persuasion.